Well, delighted to announce that for a third straight season here, since we moved to the digital space, Blake, we will be joined around draft time and including in a moment by Cam Robinson, the director of film scouting for Elite Prospects, going to serve as our draft insider once again this year. How you doing, fella?
I'm doing well, boys. How are you doing?
Yeah, very, very well. How are things on the island, Cam?
Things are good. Yeah, the sun's out. We're inching closer to the end of the school year here, so everybody's excited about that. This is actually our last year way on the tiny little island. We're moving back to civilization here this summer, so soaking in the last bit of it. Yeah.
Wow, big news there. I certainly hope you caught the all-island goaltending affair for the Golden Knights last night, huh? Aiden Hill and Brossoit, the two island kids, combined to win that game against the Oilers.
Yeah, not bad. Hey, it was Port Alberni and I believe Comox. Hey, yeah,
that's absolutely it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, growing up in Comox myself, we've had a couple NHLers come out of there, so it's not bad.
Lots of pride there from the island with the Golden Knights. Okay, 11th overall, Cam. You tell me what kind of player, what quality of player is going to be available for the Vancouver Canucks.
They're going to get a good player. They are. Obviously, they did themselves a disservice by winning so many meaningless games down the stretch and kicking that number up the board a little bit. But, if they're picking 7, they're probably going to get a similar style player that they're going to get at 11. I did a mock draft for EP Ringside there last week, and I gave them David Reinbacher at number 11, and I had him being the first defenseman off the board. And now you'd have to go way back to 1985 before you'd see the first 10 picks come and go without a defenseman being selected. So do I actually think that's going to happen this year? Probably not, because teams just can't help themselves.
Yeah.
Even if they know, hey, look at this forward and this forward are probably better long term. We want a defenseman. We're going to reach for a defenseman. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a couple defensemen taken in the top 10. And Reinbacher's probably going to be that first one. So the likelihood of him being there at 11 is probably a little bit lower. But there's still going to be a lot of good options, because when teams reach up for those defensemen, a couple of forwards are going to slip down the board as well. Right?
That's the spin, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's going to be some wingers to choose from. There's going to be some centers to choose from, and then there's going to be some defensemen to choose from. And personally, I probably wouldn't be reaching on a D-man if I was Vancouver, even though I understand they need some help on the blue line on the right side.
So is Reinbacher appropriate value at 11 then, Cam? Like, would that be a reach in any stretch of the imagination?
I think it would be fine. I have him just a little bit lower than that, early teen sort of thing. But it's such a mashup after even pick 5 sort of thing, that I would be perfectly content with Reinbacher at 11. I do know some team side people who think that would be a reach, that he should be more early 20s. But I think what we see with him is it's the upside. It's the projection. It's the size. It's the skating. He has excellent defensive habits. Whether or not the offense generates at the next level is kind of the big question. But even if it doesn't, you're probably still looking at a guy who can safely project as like a 4 or 5. And then maybe the offense does come. People are always like, well, look at kind of Mo Seider. They both speak German. They're both big. They're both on the right side. He's not Mo Seider. He's not as big. He's not as mean. And he doesn't have that level of offensive upside. We didn't think Seider was going to have that level either, but he flashed it a lot more than Reinbacher does. But at 11, I think he'll be just fine with that pick if he's still available.
Given his size, could he play next year?
In the NHL?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
I mean, he could play next year. I think that it would destroy his development, but it wouldn't be my choice. I would maybe if he really shows out in camp, you put him in the AHL, and then you see how it goes. But I wouldn't be plug and playing any 18-year-old defenseman into that Canucks lineup.
Take me through the other two defensemen, Axel Sandin Palika, the Swede, and then Dimitri Simachev, who seems to have a lot of helium here on some lists, including the Elite Prospects. The last Elite Prospects ranking has him actually as the number 1 defenseman at number 10 overall.
Yeah, we've had Simachev top 10 as our top-rated defenseman anyways for most of the season. He is big, 6'4", and still growing by all reports, which could be a bad thing. You don't want him too big, but skates just beautifully. Like, he has an excellent skating stride. You look at some of these big guys who are like, hey, he's big and he can move pretty well for his size. This guy just moves really, really well, and he even has that lateral agility to kind of shake pressure on forechecks and things like that. The statistical profile is what kind of keeps him the question marks up. It's like, even at the MHL, the junior level in Russia, he didn't put up a ton of points, or really many points at all. But he played most of the season in the KHL, where you're not expected to put up any points there. So this is a guy who I kind of relate a little bit to more like a Condre Miller, a really raw, athletic prospect who skates really, really well. You can see just excellent stopping power. He's physical. And then if that offense does come, like, holy, look out, you've got yourself a really impactful player. And again, if it doesn't, I could still see him being a very viable, like, number 3 guy that you have him out there, and he's that hybrid defenseman who can still skate the puck out, who can still move it. He's just not going to really be all that creative.
So if any of those 3 are available at 11, should the Canucks take one of them?
No, I would probably not take Axel Sandin Palika at 11 myself.
Okay.
I really like him too, and it's a guy that I root for because he's offensive, he's shifty, he's creative. I thought he had a terrific U18s where he did show that he can play some staunch defensive qualities as well. He had a good stick and he was angling. It's just when you look at defensemen at that size, they have to be so elite to really step up. He's not going to be a top power play guy, I don't think. Not in Vancouver anyways. So now you're looking at a second power play type of player, and then what? Are you going to shelter him at 5-on-5? Because I don't think he's going to be staunch enough defensively to really handle any matchups. So to me, is he Nils Lundqvist? Is he Adam Boquist? Is he Victor Soderstrom? These are a bunch of guys that are, small Swedish guys that were really, really good junior players, and we all liked them, and I thought that they were first rounders. And they just haven't broken right because it's just really, really difficult to be an impact player at that size unless you can skate like Quinn Hughes and you have hands and mind like Quinn Hughes.
Is there Olli Juolevi risk there? That sounds Olli Juolevi-esque.
Yeah, except for Juolevi was 6'3", right? So at least he had that going for him too, right? I think the offense is there. The offense is there. It's just not elite there. So it's it's someone that if he was good enough and they could feed him 3 minutes of power play every night, I think he could put up 40 or 50 points in the NHL, maybe. But that's not probably his future. It's going to be more of a secondary offensive role, which means that now he has to rely on his two-way play, and that becomes the question.
Cam, lots of centers in this draft, and I imagine there'll be some centers for the Vancouver Canucks at 11, whether that's either of the U.S. National Team Development Program kids, Will Smith, Oliver Moore, whether that's either of the Western Hockey Leaguers, Braden Yeager or Nate Danielson, Callum Ritchie from the OHL, and Dalibor Dvorsky, a Slovak playing in the Swedish League. Of that collection of centers there, that's beyond the upper tier of course, Bedard and Fantilli and Carlson. Which one do you like most, and which one do you think could be available at number 11?
I probably like Will Smith the best, and he'll be gone. He won't be there at 11. Oliver Moore is really interesting because he is the best skater in the class. He's extremely speedy, and not just in a straight line. He has good lateral agility. It's kind of a bit of a thing with him is that he wasn't afforded the same level of line mates that Smith had. Like, he got to play with Ryan Leonard and Gabe Perreault all season long, and Moore was playing those secondary minutes and was kind of getting, he had a couple of a 2024 eligible and a 2025 eligible, or a couple of kids that are destined to be good college players, not NHLers. So he didn't have nearly the same level of talent to work with, and he still put up really good numbers. I think if you swapped him and Smith, he's the one breaking Austin Matthews' all-time point record. So he's really interesting to me. I think he's going to need a little bit of time in school to figure out, allow his mind to catch up with his feet. But I like him, I think, really, really high upside. Dalibor Dvorsky, I think it's a player that I've heard Vancouver has been interested in all season long. I think they really like him. He's a really safe player. He's someone that is probably going to get drafted a little bit higher than he should for the offensive potential that he has, and that might be a bit of a burden for him as we see these guys get drafted in the top 10 and then they don't produce, and then people get down on him. But I still think he's going to carve out a really strong career as a two-way penalty killer, matchup guy who can get to the net and finish off plays that way. I wrote a big dive on him, and I think like 85% of his goals came at the net front or the slot. Like, he goes to the hard areas. Again, I think he's gone early too, because I think teams like how safe he is, a big-bodied center. I mentioned Ryan Leonard. He's more of a kind of drive and pop winger at this point, but he used to play the middle of the ice, and I think teams like the opportunity that they think he could be a hard skill center again as well too. I could see Vancouver being really interested in him there. Nate Danielson, someone I think I'm a little bit lower on, but he's a bit older for this class. I think I'm a little bit more limited ceiling as well, but great speed coming off an arc on the rush. Braden Yeager had a bit of a disappointing season. I don't want to say disappointing, but not as great as we expected. I thought he turned his game up in the playoffs there for Moose Jaw, though. Still has the really high upside, has the great shot, good speed, and he's competitive. So those three tools are going to serve him well into a middle six at least level.
Yeah, Dvorsky's a 200-pounder already, so an NHL body there. You mentioned Leonard and Gabe Perreault. That is the son of Yannick Perreault. His brother's already drafted by Anaheim, and he'll be another first-round pick. The one guy we didn't mention, Ritchie, the Oshawa centerman, who also looks like he fell a little bit like Yeager this year, Cam?
Yeah, Callum Ritchie, he had the great Holinka Gretzky tournament, and it kind of set off his draft eligibility. We're like, hey, this guy could be really good. He had a strong draft -1. I'm not a big fan. There's a couple of guys on our Team DP ringside who like him a lot more than me. I think he's better suited kind of for that 20 to 30 range, personally. I have a hard time getting over the feet. He's not a great mover. He has a great mind. He can work the wall really well, but I really value speed and IQ, and he's only got one of those at this point.
Marvelous stuff, my friend. Great hearing your voice again. Great seeing you on the video YouTube side. Can't wait for the draft next month, and you'll be riding along with us. Appreciate this, Cam.